Minions. I think it goes without saying that one of the biggest icons in animation of this decade, it's hands down these little guys. Ever since their debut back in 2010 with Despicable Me, it's pretty hard to look around the corner and not find a Minion in any way, shape, or form. And I can honestly see why. With their simplistic and cute design with a goofy and comedic personality, it's like every cartoonist and marketer's dream, filled with creative potential and just farts out money with every breath it takes. But now that the Minions are left with their own movie without Gru, will people love this as much as they love bananas? Or will this go as well as the last time when a bunch of comic reliefs decided to make their own movie? Let's find out. The story. The whole point of the film is to explain the origins of the Minions, where they came from, what is their purpose in life, and where were they in significant moments of history. In that regard, the movie actually does a pretty good job at it. It goes into detail about how they serve more than just comic reliefs in their own world, and executes it in the same goofy tone that keeps a part of the spirit of the Despicable Me films alive in here. So, in that sense, the movie does succeed as a spin-off. But the story is not all about the history of the Minions. The majority of the film is actually about how three Minions, Kevin, Bob, and Stuart, try to find a supervillain to be their boss and ended up with Scarlet Overkill.
Steal me the crown and all your dreams come true.
Respect. Power.
Banana!
Banana.
Unfortunately, this is the weakest aspect of the movie. That plotline is mostly driven by cliches, and it shows how it didn't focus on the journey itself, resulting in an easily predictable plot. But considering that the story itself isn't the main focus, then what is it? Well, it is a movie all about the Minions, so of course it puts its money on the humor. And the movie is genuinely funny. It constantly throws out non-stop gags for every minute it has, and while there are some that can be hit and miss, most of them do give out a good laugh thanks to its goofy and Looney Tunes style tone. The substance of the film does not come from the story itself, but rather from whatever includes the Minions. The animation. The Despicable Me films aren't really known for pushing the boundaries with their animation, but they are still nice to look at regardless, and the same can be applied here. I'll just get the negatives out of the way and say that the weakest element in the animation of these films have always been the character designs. They just always seem a bit too simplistic for a computer animated feature, and especially with the Minions that they basically all look the same. But with that out of the way, it definitely makes up for it in many ways. The character animation is definitely a highlight, giving all the characters, both human and Minion, full of life and bursting with energy, which does help make this movie a lot of fun to watch. But the best part about being associated with Despicable Me is by having all the cool creative gadgets at their disposal. With all the different adventures the Minions go through with Scarlet and her husband Herb, the movie gets a chance to look at plenty of their inventions and see them in action. If there's one thing that does stand out in terms of animation, it's that this movie delivers some great chase scenes. They're what helped the film to be fast-paced, highly creative, and surprisingly intense. But then there are also the backgrounds, which you never expect to put much thought into it for the kind of film that it is, but they actually are really nice to look at and pretty detailed on top of that. It does go to different areas around the world, but it mostly stays in London, showing many of the monuments like Buckingham Palace. Sure, the designs are a little weak, but it doesn't stop the animation to be a lot of fun. The characters. Sure, when you look at the trailers and all the small clips, it seems like this movie is just filled with all different characters. In actuality though, there are only a handful that are significant to the story. Let's begin with our main minions, Kevin, Bob, and Stuart. As characters, there isn't really much to them. In fact, some may argue that they're more one-dimensional. Like Kevin is the determined one to find everyone a new supervillain to serve, Stuart is the more straight man, and Bob is the little kid-like goofball. However, they all have one thing in common with the rest of their brethren. They're minions. Thanks to the movie's focus on their origins and purpose, they all become a fleshed out character as a group. Sure, they're a little dumb and they can often screw up, but they're very loyal to whomever they serve, and they try their best to keep their master happy in their funny little way. It's basically their purpose in life. Maybe 3 of them is not enough, but surprisingly, an entire group of minions is capable of carrying their own movie with their cute charm and goofy sense of humor. And then there's Scarlet Overkill and her husband Herb, who aren't really that much memorable actually. I mean, for who they are, they're just simply described as the supervillains of the film, and there's not much else to say. They do try to be over the top to bring forth their own brand of humor, but it feels pointless of them to do so. I mean, what works with Gru is that he mostly plays the straight man while the minions are the goofballs, and that's what makes him such a lovable character. But with Scarlet and Herb, it's like they're trying to be funny only to realize later that they don't have to. I mean, they're in a Minions movie. It doesn't need any extra jokes. As for the rest, they are rather creative and interesting characters like the Nelson family and the other supervillains, but they're unfortunately just glanced over in order to make more room for the minions and the overkills.
So many bad guys in the car. What fun!
I knew it! I knew you were villains, didn't I, honey? What a small world. Hope we're not in rival gangs.
It would have actually improved it if the minions would hop from one villain to another across the whole film. All the other characters will unfortunately be forgotten, but since it's their movie, it's all about the minions here. It may not be as good as the Despicable Me films, but Minions is still a fun and enjoyable flick on its own, able to bring some nicely looking animation, a lot of laughs, and, of course, those charmingly quirky Twinkies despite having a story that's a bit weak. If you're a fan of the Despicable Me movies, or if you're in the mood for some goofy kind of fun, then go check this one out. If you don't like the films though, then don't even bother watching it. It's literally everything that the haters despise about them all wrapped up in 90 minutes. Sure, Minions is a very simple title, but it actually describes all that you need to know about the movie.